If you scuba dive or are planning to, you will get into an accident. Today's story is about 3 urgent problems I had while ice diving. The problem is not the accident, but whether you learn from it. Let's dive into it. It's January 28th, 2023 in Scuba, Latvia. I'm standing on a frozen lake. In front of me is a cutout in the ice. That's my way in. That's how I will go diving in the ice. I fully believe that this is going to be an epic adventure. Believe it or not, I love ice diving. But then I see something to my left. I turn around and I see my buddy pacing around, fidgeting, signs of a nervous diver. I go over to him and I ask, "Hey, are you okay?" Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just worried about, going ice diving. I haven't done it in a while. Oh, yeah, I understand. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be epic, don't worry. See, there's one major fear people have about ice diving. It's being lost under the ice, never finding their way home. So after talking with my buddy, I went back to my spot and sat down and filmed a little. But then I'm being called to start the dive. You need to understand something. There's 2 ways to go ice diving. Well, actually 3, but the third one is really dumb. So the first approach is doing the same procedures as in any overhead environment diving, like cave diving. In fact, that's how I was able to go solo ice diving last winter. Picture this, you have a reel with a lot of rope on it. That's what you call your guideline. It's important because it's literally your lifeline. That's how you find your way back home. And the idea is that you always have the line next to you. But that's not what we did in this dive. Here, we use the second most popular approach to ice diving, and that is being tethered by a rope. There's a person on the ice holding the rope and communicating with you via various pulls. That's how they know if you're okay or in deep trouble. If you ever do ice diving, that's the experience that you will most likely get. So there I am, about to enter the ice. I jump in the water, my buddy jumps after me. We check each other's gear, make sure everything's okay. But then suddenly a violent gush of air starts coming from my regulator, the thing I used to breathe underwater. I realized it's just a free-flowing regulator, very common in ice diving. I turned to the people on the ice. I showed them to my cylinder valve. I asked them to close it so that the air stops coming and the free-flowing stops. They do that and pour some warm water over the regulator. Why, you might ask? Posted it rolling here. So the reason regulators can free flow is due to various reasons, but in ice diving it can be because ice crystals form in the mechanisms preventing them from actually closing and therefore giving constant continuous air to you. For example, in your regulator, the second stage, you have a little rubber membrane that might get stuck in a certain position and therefore continuously pressing on the mechanism to give you air. After the minor issue has been fixed, we're all settled, squared, and we're good to go. We exchange OKs and down we go, under the 10 centimeter thick ice, always above our heads, reminding us that we're just visitors here, tourists. I'm thinking to myself, finally, I'm about to experience ice diving again. So in this excited state, we're swimming around. I'm looking at my buddy, exchanging OKs. The surface support is pulling on the rope. I pull back. Everything's okay. I feel serene, peaceful even. But then something goes horribly wrong. I feel myself stuck, unable to swim forward. I turn around to see what it is. The rope is holding me back. I notice the rope going away from the exit, from the cutout in the ice. It's pulled tight and to the side. I look closely and I notice that the rope is actually in between the cutout ice and the main ice, so it's wrapped around it. See, usually when you make a cutout in the ice, you push the block of ice under the main ice, with the idea that when you're done, you push the cutout back into its place, essentially sealing that cutout so that nobody else comes along and falls down into the icy water. But here's the thing, I'm stuck because the rope is wedged between the cutout ice and the main ice. See, there's a little gap. And the reason there's a gap is because of a decision that is commonly made when ice diving. The decision is to put a little stick between the cutout ice and the main ice so that they don't freeze together and that you can actually move the cutout ice. I say cutout ice so many times. I need to play a drinking game. That decision, though, has created a dangerous situation. Why is it dangerous? Well, remember how I said that the surface support communicates with you via various pulls? So because the rope is tight now, the surface support can't communicate with you, and you can't communicate with them. So realizing this, I signal to my buddy, point to the rope, and together we move towards the spot where the problem is to try to fix it. But as soon as we turn around, another problem hits. I start hearing a noise as if a balloon is being inflated. Then I start rising to the top. Oh shit. I realize quickly what's the problem. My dry suit inflation button got stuck, and now I'm rising to the top. This is really bad because I'm at a depth of about 10 meters, which means that the pressure is twice as large as on the surface. So if I get shot up to the surface without realizing what's happening, I might get a lung overexpansion injury. Okay, I need to fix this problem now. Luckily, this is a situation that we trained for. So the way I deal with it is I lift my left shoulder with the dump valve for the dry suit, so that way the air can exit. At the same time, with my right hand, I'm trying to disconnect the inflator hose, which is located in the middle of my chest on the dry suit. Remember I said I started ascending to the surface? Well, as I'm doing that, the rope that's tethered to me starts pulling on the regulator from which I'm breathing, essentially trying to rip it out of my mouth. This climaxes into a perfect storm. 3 problems, all at the same time, and I can't decide which one to solve first. The rope is pulling the regulator out of my mouth, my dry suit is ballooning to the surface, I can't communicate with the surface support, I can't breathe properly, I start hyperventilating, and my brain spinning so fast, I can't decide what to fix first. And as I hit the icy ceiling, suddenly all the problems stop, as if they never happened. My dry suit stops inflating because I managed to disconnect the inflator hose. The rope doesn't pull my regulator anymore because it's slackened. Everything went quiet, as if nothing ever happened, as if it was all in my mind. I close my eyes, calm my breathing, open my eyes, look at my buddy, show him that I'm okay. We fix the rope and continue on with the dive. A bit shaken, but ultimately glad that it's over. The rest of the dive is uneventful. And really, I spent it thinking about the most important question really that there is. What could I have done differently? After getting out with my buddy, we did a debrief, as you should after every dive. And we came to 3 conclusions that I could have done better. First, we started swimming in front of the cutout ice. So imagine you have the hole in the ice, and the triangle that you cut out is moved here. So if you swim in front of it, so in this direction, the risk is that you might swim around the cutout, essentially wrapping around. That's what happened with us. So the way to minimize this risk is actually to swim in the opposite direction from the cutout. Second, dealing with the runaway inflation was the most pressing problem. Everything else was secondary. Even if the regulator would be ripped out of my mouth, it doesn't matter because I would have at least a few more moments to breathe. And worst case scenario, my buddy is tethered to me, only in a few meters away from me. I could simply turn to him and ask for air. The problem is that learning to deal with a runaway inflation of your BCD or your dry suit is actually a practice that you don't do often. And people don't do it often, and including myself, I don't do it as often as I would want to. It's because it's simply, first of all, not something that comes to your mind. But second, it's a bit challenging to do it, especially if you solo dive, like I do most of the time. Of course, you can do it, you can simulate it in a way where you lift your shoulder dump valve and press on the inflation button, and that simulates it a little bit, but it's not the real deal. Of course, it's better than nothing. That's all you can do, still try doing it that way. Third, we didn't really brief with the buddy what we would do in case of various problems like the dry suit inflation, rope being tight. And this is especially important because in ice diving, you are tethered to your partner. So if I'm being pulled up, he's being pulled up. So if we would have done this brief before the dive, maybe we would have been more aware of the problems that could happen, and maybe the rope problem would never have happened. which means that the regulator problem would never have happened, which means that the only problem I would have to deal with would be the dry suit inflation. And since that would be the only problem, it would be much easier for me to deal with it. Let me know in the comments below what you think I did wrong or what you would have done differently, or tell a story of your own. I would love to hear it. Thank you for listening, and if you like the story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can make more videos like this. Here's another diving story from me, and here's how I learned to deal with anxiety in scuba diving. Thank you for watching. See you next time.